Hi everybody. So a couple of things. One is I understand in my last video that I did my math wrong and I was off by 10 years. And instead of it being 43 years, 53 years like I said, it was 43 years since Mama got out of nursing school. And I should have realized that because if it was 53 years ago, then I would have only been 4 years old, but I was actually 14 years old. So I was off by 10 years. I apologize for that. But the principle, however, is still the same, and that is that it's just that using the same math, when Mama graduated in 1978, it would have been the same as someone looking back, someone from 1935, not 25. So nonetheless, it's still like a whole different world, you know, of experience and training, that sort of stuff. But anyway. So my story for today that I was thinking about, I figured to be fair to Momo, since I talked about her running off the road, I needed to be fair and talk about one of the times, and there were several, when I ran off the road. And this was one night I was coming home. So there were two ways to get to our house from Carlstead. One was, as I've told you about before, was to go, to go south from town for 3 miles and then turn east and then go 7 miles on a gravel road. Or another way to go home was to go east first, the 7 miles, and then turn right and then go south for 3 miles. Look, I'll probably have my directions wrong. I think I'm right though. I think I'm right. Anyway, so one night, and it was a cold night, as it often was there in the winter, and I don't remember what reason it was I went home the way I did, but instead of going on the highway and then the main gravel road, I instead did the thing where I went straight out of town and then the 3 miles to our house. The thing about it was 3 miles to our house, if I went that way, it was on what's called a section road, which is maintained, but it's not maintained very well, because those roads are really just meant for the farmers to use to get around to their fields and maybe from farm to farm, but they really weren't intended to be used as a road, as a throughway. So anyway, and I had this car when I was in high school. It was a Ford Maverick, and it was a horrible car. I mean, it was just, it was unreliable. It was ugly. The seat on the driver's side, like the springs were broken. So even though I'm not real tall, I'm tall enough, and even with me, I would get in and sort of sink down. And Lord knows, you should have seen Mama driving it. She could barely see over the steering wheel. But anyway, so one night I'm coming home, and for whatever reason I'm taking this back way, not the regular way. Oh, and this Maverick, the headlights were not very good on it, which, you know, why worry about headlights when you live in a place in the winter where it's dark 16 or 17 hours a day. Anyway, so I'm coming home in this old car, and I come up the main road going east out of town. I turn right to go south, drive along the road, and then I get to the section road part, and I honestly don't even remember now what caused me to do it, but I saw something in front of me in these horrible headlights. I saw something in front of me. It made me hit the brakes, and when I did that, the car turned around all the way in the road and then slid into the ditch, sort of back end first, right? So I was sitting in the ditch, kind of like this, with the front of the car. I think my front wheels were, you know, still up on the road or whatever, but I was in this kind of steep ditch and just sitting there. So still not even sure what happened there. And of course, my only thought is, oh great, I'm going to be in trouble because I have once again gone into the ditch. I have lots of going into the ditch stories. So anyway, it was fortunate that that where I went in the ditch wasn't probably 50 yards from our closest neighbor, whose name was Steve something. I don't remember his last name. I'm sure Mama and Papa will remember his last name. But he was a really, really nice guy to me. He was kind of a big talker. He was kind of a talk, constant talker. And, but nonetheless. So I go up and I knock on their door. And he didn't live by himself. He had a family. But anyway, I go and knock on the door. He invites me in. Come in and have some coffee. We'll pull you out in just a minute. Don't worry, everything is fine. Blah, blah. So then I asked, could I use his phone to call my parents? Again, no cell phones. So, matter of fact, phones then still had dials on them, for goodness sakes. And anyway, so I call. I tell Papa what happened, why I went in the ditch. And what was funny is he wasn't mad at me because I need to back up and tell you what was in the road. So across from us, there had been some guys out clearing land. And one of the things they used, and I can't remember what it's called now, but basically it was like a bulldozer, and then you pulled this big thing behind you that scraped up the dirt, right? I mean, that's what it did. It was sort of like, Gussie and Verona, if you're watching this, maybe you could have your dad or your Jenny show you how or what a wood plane works. But that's kind of how this thing worked. None of that really matters, but it was this big, huge steel thing, and what had happened was they had been moving it, and their bulldozer that they were pulling it behind had broken down, and they had sort of gotten off the side of the road, but this thing, this big giant steel thing, was still sticking out in the road. And it's funny, again, I didn't think about it much at the time, but I've thought about it since, and seriously, where that thing was, had I not seen it, had I not slid off the road, had I not hit the brakes, it probably would have taken the top right off my car, or at least this side, and it may very well have taken my head with it. I mean, it was, again, looking back on it now, of course, when you're 16 or 17, you feel like you're 8 feet tall and bulletproof, and you don't ever think you're gonna die and everything's gonna be okay. But looking back on it now, I realize, and this is why I realize now why Papa was so mad, because they had left this thing in the dark on the side of the road, on a narrow road, on an icy narrow road, and with no markers, no reflectors, no flares, no nothing. I mean, it was an extremely dangerous thing to do. So when Papa found out what happened, he drove back over there. This Steve got a pickup, pulled me out of the ditch. I drove home, and Papa then came and looked at this thing, and he called the sheriff's department and told them about it, and that they needed to get somebody out there to mark this before somebody got killed. And so anyway, all right, that's one of my sliding off the road in the ice and snow stories. Again, I have plenty more. Okay, thanks for watching. Love you.